All right, let's talk about the economy. It's always sending out signals, right? But half the time, it feels like it's speaking a totally different language. Well, in the next few minutes, we're going to crack that code. We'll look at the key signs that tell us whether we're headed for a boom or a bust. So let's get right into it. But before we get into the heavy stuff, I've got a question for you. And I'm being completely serious here. Can men's underwear predict a recession? I know. It sounds absolutely ridiculous. But believe it or not, this is a real theory that actual economists have debated for years. Yep, it's called the Men's Underwear Index. And get this, the idea was made famous by Alan Greenspan, the former head of the Federal Reserve. The logic is actually kind of simple. Underwear is a necessity, right? But it's also a purchase you can totally put off when you're trying to save money. So the theory goes, if sales start to drop, it's a quiet little signal that people are really starting to pinch pennies, even on the absolute basics. And trust me, it's not the only weird one out there. You've also got the lipstick index, the idea that when times are tough, we skip the big purchases but still buy small luxuries, like lipstick. Then there's the hemline index, which you're not going to believe. This suggests skirt lengths get shorter when the economy is good and longer when it's bad. Oh, and the buttered popcorn index. Apparently, we go to the movies more during recessions because it's a cheap way to escape for a few hours. Look, as fun as these are, they're not just jokes. What they're really trying to do is measure our psychology. You know, how we feel about our money and the future. And that's something the big official government reports can be really slow to pick up on. These odd little indicators can give us a hint about consumer confidence way before the official data drops. Okay, so a dip in underwear sales is, well, a pretty fascinating theory. But let's be real. What do the pros actually use? What are the big-time indicators that economists and Wall Street investors are looking at when they're making those billion-dollar decisions? That's where the economy's official scorecard comes in. We're talking about the formal, data-driven metrics for checking the economy's pulse. Economists basically group these indicators into three main buckets. It's actually pretty easy to remember. You've got leading indicators. Think of these as the crystal ball, trying to predict the future. Then there are coincident indicators, which are like a snapshot of what's happening right now. And finally, lagging indicators. These are your rear-view mirror. They confirm a trend after it's already happened. Okay, so out of all of them, there are three that you absolutely have to know. These are the big three you hear about on the news all the time, and for very good reason. So let's decode them one by one. First on the list is gross domestic product. You know it as GDP. Honestly, this is the big kahuna. The simplest way to think about it is like a final report card for the entire country's economy. It literally just adds up the total value of everything. Every car, every coffee, every haircut produced in the country. And if GDP is the report card, let's think of it as a giant pizza. To see what it's made of, it's got four main slices. The biggest slice is consumption. That's all the stuff you and I buy. Then you've got a slice for investment, which is what businesses spend on new equipment and buildings. The third slice is government spending. And the last little slice is net exports. Basically, everything we sell to other countries minus everything we buy from them. All right, number two of the big three, the unemployment rate. Now, this one sounds simple enough, right? But here's the catch. It's a lagging indicator. You might be wondering why. Well, think about it from a company's perspective. They're usually pretty slow to start hiring again, even when things get better. And they often wait as long as possible before they have to let people go. So the unemployment number tells you more about the recent past than the future. And rounding out our big three is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. This is the one that hits all of us right in the wallet. It's our main way of measuring inflation. Basically, the government tracks the price of a big old basket of stuff that an average person buys. We're talking everything from milk and bread to gas for your car. And it tells us how much more expensive it's getting just to live. I mean, look at this simple example. A gallon of milk was $3 a year ago, and now it's $3.50. That feeling you get at the checkout? That is inflation. The CPI just takes thousands of those little price changes and boils them all down to one single number, so we can see the overall trend. So we've covered the big three. They're super important. But what if I told you there was another indicator, one that some experts believe is the single most powerful recession predictor we have? I'm talking about a signal with a track record that is almost spooky. It's called the yield curve. And seriously, this thing has a major reputation. You talk to people in finance, and they'll tell you straight up, it is the closest thing to a crystal ball for the economy that exists. So what on earth is it? Don't let the name scare you. It's actually just a simple graph. All it does is show the interest rates, or yields, on government bonds. It's basically comparing the interest you'd get for loaning the government money for a short time, say 2 years, versus loaning it money for a long time, like 10 years. Now, here's what you need to know. Normally, that graph slopes upward. That makes sense, right? You should get paid a higher interest rate for locking up your money for 10 years than for 2 years. That's a sign of a healthy, confident economy. But every once in a while, it flips. It inverts. And when that happens, it is a huge red flag. It means investors are so nervous about the near future that they're demanding a higher payout for short-term loans than for long-term ones. It's a massive vote of no confidence. And here is the killer stat, the reason everyone pays attention to it. An inverted yield curve has come before the last 8 US recessions. Let me say that again, 8 for 8. No other indicator even comes close to a track record like that. So we've gone from underwear sales to the big three and the all-powerful yield curve. The big question now is, how do you put all these pieces together to actually read what's going on? And this is probably the single most important thing to remember from all of this. No one indicator tells the whole story, not even the yield curve. The real trick is to see them all together. You look at the leading indicators to get a hint of what's coming. You use the coincident ones to see where we are right this second. And you use the lagging ones to confirm what you thought was happening. Really, the best analogy is a jigsaw puzzle. GDP, that's one piece. Unemployment, another piece. Even the weird stuff like lipstick sales, they're all just single pieces of a much bigger picture. And you know how a puzzle works. Staring at one single piece doesn't really tell you anything. But when you start to connect them, when you see how the edges fit together, that's when the complete picture of the economy finally comes into view. And look, that's really the crucial point here. We've gone through a lot, from the kind of silly to the really complex. But the bottom line is this. You now have the basic tools. You have the framework to start looking at the news and begin to understand these signals for yourself. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Every single day, new economic signals are coming out. New pieces of the puzzle are being revealed. So now that you know what to look for, what do you think the economy is telling you right now?